We're with Robert talking about codependency. What is codependency, and why isn't it just considered being loving?
Codependency is sort of the opposite side of the coin of addiction. It's marked by people who either rescue or control or caretake other individuals in a way to manage their feelings. It's not considered loving because it's why you do it. You do codependent behaviors to make yourself feel better and to regulate your own emotions, not because you're trying to give to other people. Being loving has boundaries. You don't injure yourself when you're being loving with other people. But codependency has no boundaries. You will do anything for that other person, even when it hurts you.
Okay. Do you believe that some people are hardwired to be codependent or addicts?
There's some research that suggests that, at least with addiction, that there is a predisposition for it. The biggest evidence for that is that how it seems to be generational in families, where you'll see grandparents alcoholics and then dad and so forth and so on. But I think also the other part of the science with that is that your brain hardwires itself at early ages with certain patterns of behaviors. If you learn to cope by screaming or crying, it becomes something that hardwires in your brain. So it looks almost genetic, but it's not really genetic. It's a learned behavior, but it hardwires yourself in the brain, and then it becomes very hard to undo.
So really it's a combination of biological, psychological, learning, your environment, all of that together.
Right.
What is the difference between codependency and post-traumatic stress disorder?
I like how the Navy puts this metaphor where they say you can put a boat in a ship and not a ship in a boat. And what that means is that there's a relationship. Post-traumatic stress disorder it's a response to some sort of trauma. People who have that happen to them don't necessarily become codependent, although they can. But they could also become addicts, or they could just remain depressed or within their post-traumatic stress with nothing else outside of that. So post-traumatic is a part of codependency, but codependency doesn't necessarily spring, solely from, or rather the other way around. Post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't spring from codependency. It's the other way around.
Do you work a 12-step group?
Yes, I do. I work online groups, COSA meetings, and I think that anybody who thinks they can do this themselves or just stop after a while, stop taking their medicine, as they put it, is kidding themselves. You need support people. You need people who know what's happened to you and who have been there and can say, I understand how that feels. Make you feel safe in telling your story, and that's how you stay healthy.
Is it difficult being a male there?
Very. Codependency is looked at as a passive, weak, a lot of adjectives that were kind of easier labeling women, and so there aren't a lot of men who seek the help. I think there are far more codependent men than is commonly known. However, men don't like to look for help, and they're especially not going to want to look for help when the adjectives associated with codependency exist the way they do.
Process helped you in any other areas of your life?
Yes, definitely, since learning how to cope with things differently, one of the most immediate results is that I have a ton more time to pursue other things. I'm not spending so much energy compulsively thinking or looking or worrying about somebody else. I have time to take care of the things that I need to take care of. So it's made me a better father, a better person, a better friend, a better worker in all those aspects, because I have more time and energy and priorities, and I have boundaries.
How did you manage to fall for the lies of another addict after you spent all those years learning the tricks of your previous addicts?
This is one that, again, goes back to the discussion of codependents of being passive, sort of sheep, while the addicts are the lions out there looking to tear you up and find you. It's really a dysfunctional relationship where both parties are magnets for one another. We find each other. My childhood trauma is, not being rescued from feelings of worthlessness. So I go out and I try to rescue people who are going to make me feel worthless. It's repeating that trauma that's familiar. In my case specifically anyway, I didn't fall for the lies of my addict. I knew she was lying all throughout my last addict, all throughout my relationship. But it's what's familiar to me. It's repeating that, if I could just rescue this one type of drive, but I have to find somebody who's broken like that to try to rescue. A healthy individual doesn't need that. So we find each other. It isn't falling for the same old tricks and not learning. It's really, we're looking for the familiar traumatic experience that plays itself out from childhood.
Right.
Number 2, what are some of the tools you use to remain healthy?
One of the biggest tools is boundaries. You have to know what's healthy for you to set. It's also an objective barrier that if you cross the boundary, you're going wrong, you're headed wrong. Another big tool is putting in a pause, stopping yourself and accepting that your default's going to be a codependent behavior. If you put in a pause, you can kind of decide what this really is and what this really isn't.
How will you avoid another codependent or addictive relationship, or do you believe there can be a healthy relationship between addicts and codependents?
This one is tough. You cannot be working towards being healthy and be with somebody who's unhealthy ultimately, whether you're an addict or a codependent or what have you. You can only be in a healthy relationship if the other person is likewise working towards being healthy or healthy themselves. Short of that, I don't care what the combination, it will not work. But many of the books and information I've read will say that you can be in a healthy relationship with an addict, provided that addict is in a healthy place themselves in their own recovery, not something you control, something they take care of themselves. The advantage of a healthy addict, healthy codependent relationship is that you both know the process, you've both been through the growth, you understand what it takes and how hard it is, and that can be something that binds you in a very healthy way. But again, keeping in mind that you have no control over what the other person's doing. So there's great danger to that relationship, as well as there's great reward if both parties are committed.
So in other words, to have a healthy relationship with a codependent and or addict or both, both have to be in recovery.
In recovery.
Or have some kind of plan.
In recovery, very committed, yes.
Strength and hope do you have for someone who is just starting out?
Get help. You don't do this alone.
Get therapy, get help, get a support group. There are lots of really good books out there. There's a lot of good clips on YouTube as well. And realize you're not alone. There are lots and lots of people. It takes a bit of courage to first step out and say, I have this problem. But until you identify and admit, and that's why step 1 in the 12 steps program is admitting, until you take ownership that you have a problem, a lot of my feelings and many feelings that I've heard other codependents and or addicts use, there's a lot of feeling shame because there's so many secrets and there's so many things that we think are unique to ourselves. And until we don't share that and feel safe with other people who've been through similar things, it doesn't really come out, and it needs to come out. Everything needs to come out. Rigorous honesty. You have to be willing to say and do anything that it's going to take to get yourself better. I think people who aren't honest, who can't be honest with themselves, are doomed in this process, because it takes basically saying and doing whatever it takes to get better, and that can't be stressed enough.
So in other words, you have to be motivated and insightful.
Last quote I want to share that's important. I think Melody Beadle stated it this way: it's not your fault if you got hit by a car. How you heal from getting hit by a car is your responsibility, and don't get stuck in victim